Welcome. Let's take a look at the top story that we're tracking for you. German authorities come under heavy scrutiny for the slow rollout of COVID vaccines. Even though the vaccine supply from the bloc has improved, the nation is still struggling to amp up its inoculation drive. Until Tuesday, only 5.3% of the German population had received their first jabs against the deadly virus, and only 2.7% had received both the doses. Now, the UK and the EU authorised their first vaccine around the same time, and since then the United Kingdom has inoculated almost 1/3 of its population, while Germany and the rest of the European nations are lagging far behind by a huge margin. Now, Germany has been one of Europe's worst COVID-affected nations. It has registered nearly 2.5 million infections and over 70,000 deaths since the onset of the pandemic. The Merkel administration has imposed strict measures to combat the spread of the deadly virus. Recently, Germany extended its coronavirus lockdown until the 28th of March. With the national lockdown in place, on Wednesday, Angela Merkel, along with governors of 16 German states, agreed on relaxing the lockdown curbs. Now, Merkel unveiled a 5-step plan aimed at balancing the impact of variants amid growing pressure for a return to normalcy. Under the new relaxations, schools, hairdressers and daycare facilities can reopen. For regions where the infection rate is relatively low, non-essential businesses have been allowed to function, but on a limited basis. Now, heavy criticism followed Merkel's announcement. People called her 5-step plan too confusing, as well as too early. Now, Germany witnessed a spike in coronavirus infections during the holiday season, but soon the numbers started dropping. However, in the last 2 weeks, the downward trend has halted. It has raised concerns of another surge in coronavirus infections. Now, Daniel Winter, correspondent at DW, is joining us live from Berlin for more on this. Thanks for being with us on this broadcast. Now, Angela Merkel previously said that she wanted to wait until the infections were at much lower levels before easing lockdowns. Now, is this U-turn from the German Chancellor?
Well, the Chancellor argues that the circumstances have changed enough to allow possible reopening. For example, the availability of rapid testing, which just wasn't there in Germany until recently. Now, her government has promised that there'll be enough tests to get every citizen a COVID result for free every week until the population is vaccinated. And with a population of 80 million people, that's going to be a difficult promise to keep. So when it comes to this 5-step plan that Angela Merkel unveiled, there's opposition on both sides. I mean, if you look at the likes of the Association for Intensive Care Medicine, they say it's too early to introduce a roadmap for reopening, saying death rates may be going down, but daily cases are creeping up. And on the other side, the government's own finance minister, who's from a different party than Angela Merkel, has criticised her plan for not reopening fast enough. Now, we are in a general election year, though, so you would, of course, expect to see criticism from all sides. Speaking to people here, normal Germans, there's cautious approval of the plans, but there's also confusion. There are 5 steps, each with different criteria, and if any of those change, lockdowns could be reintroduced.
Right, and it was a German company that came up with one of the first approved vaccines, yet Germany is lagging way behind with vaccinations. Where did this go wrong?
Well, it really has gone wrong. So only around 5% of Germans have even received their first dose. Essentially, the problem was that Germany bought into the EU's collective programme for sourcing vaccines, and to put it simply, the EU backed the wrong horse. The AstraZeneca vaccine production that took place inside the EU didn't go to plan. And the situation was so bad that Germany's most popular newspaper, Bild, wrote the headline, "Dear Britons, we envy you." After all, Britain has got a vaccination rate for the first dose of almost 1/3 of the population. Now, while Germany is set to get a large batch of millions of doses this week, only 65% of those doses that Germany already has have actually been administered, highlighting the logistical and bureaucratic problems in the country.
Right, Daniel, you did mention it may be too early, but is there any sense of when Germany and Europe will begin to get back to some kind of relative normalcy?
Of course, everyone here is desperate to see some semblance of normality, and scientists say it's quite possible that case numbers will ease over the summer as they did last year. But Europe's biggest problem is the patchwork of strategies and lockdown measures of all kinds, which has the potential to cause further chaos. Just think of holiday makers, some of whom are already making their bookings, and business travellers as well. If all goes to plan, as Angela Merkel has laid out, and the vaccine rollout speeds up, case numbers drop, then Germany will be at a stage of relative normal by April. So museums, cinemas, restaurants will be open, though strict hygiene measures will still be in place. But what the country's response needs now, more than ever, is a shot in the arm, quite literally.
Right, Daniel, thank you very much for being with us with all the latest coming out of Germany and the EU at large. WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.